They will return the day when they are needed. Our gaze is shifted upwards to the sky.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am very proud to announce the long-awaited release of my world record witch farm. After a 40-hour test sample, this farm reached 8,671 redstone per hour. However, going to the extreme in a 100-hour test sample, the absolute lowest it ever got to is around 8,550. And with these rates, it is the most efficient witch farm you will see in Java Edition. This entire project took over a month to create while being a full-time college student, but at last she is finally here and I called her the Witch Funnel. So before I explain in depth all the mechanics, let me show you a short feature showcase of the actual farm. And so it all starts on these 12 ticks shifting floor. Then after the floors have shifted, the witches fall through a mob piston funnel, which I will explain how it works later in this video. And then they get regrouped in my V2 looting 3x3 killing chamber, which I made a video on, so you can go watch that if you're interested how it works. Then we kill the witches by crawling under here and hitting the armor stand. And then our cart eater picks everything up and throws it in our water stream. Then all the items get collected to our item filter over here. And we actually have an integrated redstone block crafter over here. So we don't get redstone dust, we get redstone blocks for storage. Now, I'm not a professional in pack spawning, but what I can tell you is, even though there's only one witch in a pack of witch, it still applies, and so you get around 5 spawning attempts. But all you need to know is that having 14 non-spawnable blocks away from your actual spawning platform increases significantly the rates. And so here is the latest version of my shifting floor design. And so if we come over here and place a witch, you can see that it falls through very fast. And it takes slightly more time to fall through if it's on a full block because it takes 2 shifts instead of 1 to fall through. However, as you can see, it is still very fast. To put the speed in perspective, I'm using the conventional Ilmango's design on the right and mine on the left. And if I click enter, you can see that my witches fall slightly faster. So these slices work individually and take a total of 12 ticks to do a full cycle. So on the 4th tick, this piston is retracted. Then on the 7th tick, this piston is extended, so it makes 1 shift. And then on the 12th tick, this piston extends again, finishing the cycle, and the witches fall through. And so the way it works is that this tripwire activates this piston through QC, which moves this redstone block. And then doing so deactivates this piston through QC, so it retracts. So after this piston gets retracted, this tripwire sends a signal to this piston, pushing the slice all the way to the left side. And then the original signal that started on this node block by this piston pushing this redstone block finishes through these observers and pushes the slice back. And if we come around the back, we can see that there is a hopper clock with 5 items in it. And this is basically an artificial debugger, because sometimes witches spawn and don't actually fall through. So let me simulate this. So let's wait until it shifts. and oh no, the witches spawned and it's not falling through. So we basically need to have a pulse every so often. And so if there's witches stuck that are not sending the signal anymore, well, we can still get rid of them. All right, now let's talk about something I find extremely interesting, and it is what I call a mob piston funnel. The principle behind a mob piston funnel is actually very simple. You have a piston and an observer over it, and to detect when there's an entity that gets into the area, you use a single piece of string, and even though it's not connected to a tripwire, it still detects whenever there's something inside and triggers a block update. And so the observer detects it and sends it to the piston. So all we need to do is connect it to the piston. And so now if I touch this string, you can see that the piston fires. And since these are not connected to any tripwires, they work independently. So they are tileable. And if I place two next to each other, you can see that they independently fire. And it's really important because if there's a witch that triggers this one right here, you want this one to also work if there's another witch that falls at the same time. And so you can see that if I activate these one at a time, they fire independently from each other. But it gets even more interesting when you consider momentum and terminal velocity. And so if a witch spawns here, which simulates our spawning platforms, and falls, this piston will push it before it actually touches the ground, so it keeps its momentum and the fall damage is still calculated. And the same thing happens over here. It gets pushed and it falls here without being interrupted in its fall. So using this method, we can have multiple spawning platforms that are far apart from each other, and they actually end up at the exact same place, at the exact same fall damage, and at the exact same time. So the problem with conventional water funnels is that depending on where the mob spawns or falls on, it will take significantly more time to reach the center to regroup them. And even when they're centered, you still have to account the extra time it takes to fall all the way down to the bottom. And so by having a mob funnel, we essentially completely remove the grouping time. And this is how I got incredibly short witch lifespan, averaging around 3.22 seconds on the third platform, around 2.5 seconds on the second platform, and around 2.15 seconds on the first platform. I'm planning on making an exclusive video on the subject, but I think it was still important that I explained the general concept of it so people understood exactly how I got these rates. Our first contender was originally thought to be 2No2Name's concept of the fastest witch farm, and it basically uses witch AI to send them to their doom. However, when testing it, it actually has terrible rates. I can't pinpoint the exact reason it has such low rates, but I think one reason would be that witches spawning at the absolute end of the platform has to sprint all the way to the other side before it can even start falling. I'm sure there's way more reasons for that, especially the ones concerning the patrol mechanics. On top of that, you need 2 Vindicator Captain, which makes the idea even less appealing. Then someone I want to mention simply because Big Booty 17 did make a mention about them, and it is RSDKH, which allegedly made a design that had 8,650 redstone per hour. However, digging deep in a Chinese app called Bilibili, because he doesn't appear to be on YouTube, I found what I think to be the original upload, which says 8,650, and although I don't speak Chinese, I believe that to be the actual items per hour when using looting other than the redstone. Because of this image right here where I believe he compares his rates to Ilmango's rates, because there's also this design in the video which is Ilmango's. And 5,409 items per hour without looting would pretty much be in the range of 8,650 with looting. Then again, I also want to point out that his tests are irrelevant since he does his sample sizes on 286 minutes, which is roughly 4 hours. And just for comparison, this is what would happen if I did this sample size on my design. You can see that the rates are very unrealistic. And besides, his farm uses water funnels and nether portals, which makes it bidimensional, which is not very desirable. Again, I don't speak Chinese, so I could very well be wrong and encourage you guys to correct me if I am. However, it is imperative that you come back to me with proof which contains at least a sample size of 40 hours. As most of my videos do, I'm going to leave the world download and the Lightmatic in the description. And a little Easter egg about my world download is that it is actually my survival world. Of course, I didn't build a farm in survival, but since I knew it had a level 62 witch hut in it, I just took it. Don't expect anything too crazy in that world. It is not that much advanced because I didn't have much time to play in it. But to me, it is the absolute best seed I have ever seen for my world. And if you want to know why, well, you're free to explore it. But that's going to be it for this video. Thank you for everybody that tuned in this whole month and encouraged me to release it. And I hope to see you in the next one.